And you're welcome to interrupt with questions at any point. You don't have to wait until the end. But like we said, we're part of Texas Tech University. It's a large system, not as big as A&M, but it's still large. They have presence in over 250 of the 254 counties in Texas. We only have it in 186 counties. So much smaller, but still huge as far as the space that we cover. We have almost 40,000 students on the regular undergraduate, plus we have graduate law and medical campuses all in there as well. Their system also includes Angelo State University in San Angelo, Texas, which is another 8,000 students. Everyone's been starting off with what assumptions they have of the staff, but my assumptions are that you have a basic familiarity with Laserfiche integration and the products, but it's going to be a very basic presentation otherwise. So, like I was saying, Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center has campuses in Lubbock, Amarillo, Midland, Odessa, Abilene, and El Paso, Texas. So, multiple cities. Those of you that are from Texas realize that this is a space of over 200,000 square miles. This is a huge area, and we have people in all those different areas that are used to just drop things in the mail and send them to us to scan, and that we would go ahead and process those in. We have 3 licensed servers on a Rio server. They handle the electronic medical records under one of the licenses, the speech, language, and hearing on a little small license, and then everything else falls under my department's jurisdiction, and we take care of it there. Mentioned up here at the top that from 1976 until 1999, we actually microfilmed from our department. So we've been, from starting in 99 on, we've been using the Laserfiche system. So we've been using it quite a few years. And in the morning presentation, they said that the first real conference was in 2003, and my supervisor was one of the speakers at that conference. And here's one of her slides from that conference. Things have changed a little bit. I wasn't with the department at that time, but they were thrilled when they could insert an extra document in less than 5 minutes, an extra page in a document in less than 5 minutes, as opposed to what we can do in a split second now. So it's developed significantly. And with Laserfiche constantly adding new functions and functionality and features, we just love it because we're always looking for new things that we can utilize in our presentation. And of course, our users have ever-increasing expectations. We currently have some new things in development. We're working with our VAR on best ways to get those implemented. And everything that we do, we try and make it the best for the institution, which is best for the state, which frequently means lowest possible price. So even though there's ways we could do things by investing more, we're trying to do it with a different level of labor and work inside of there. So what we're going to talk about a little bit is implementing technology, that it's a constant ongoing basis of planning, integrating, implementing, and improving. Like any kind of technology, you're constantly doing that with your Laserfiche. We didn't just stop with doing the same thing we were doing with the microfilm or in the old system, just with newer technology. We're constantly striving to increase upon that. With the 3 servers that we have, I supervise pretty much everything except the electronic medical records. Those have become an entity in and of themselves on that. But with the many years of other records that we've got in there, we have older medical records and insurance, we have faculty records, lots of physical building plans, construction, student records from these various campuses, as well as each department has a lot of little things that they bring in. Training records, so much of this has different retention plans, different things that go along with it. And we utilize Laserfiche's robust capabilities for these different types of records. We take the blueprints and utility bills that we archive, we take POs and other things that they work with on an interactive fashion where we're constantly working with them. We take like copier invoices that come in that are in a fairly standardized format, and we can actually flip and pay those just pretty much with what's in Laserfiche, not doing anything else. We use SunGuard banner, which is something that a lot of the higher ed institutions use, and so it's very easy to integrate in with that. Then now we've started using the forms for a lot of things. And we could have possibly done this vehicle program that I'm going to talk about in the forms if it had been available when we started doing this. But we started using the forms for our copier service request and conference signups and pre-travel approval and lots of things like that. And now we've made it so that users without a named license or a participant license are able to add documents to the repository by using this DLL that we're going to talk about. And so that gives us a lot of flexibility with our system because, like I mentioned, the budget is such that we cannot just provide a license for absolutely everyone that's going to be adding documents at any point. So our basic agenda for this class is we're going to describe the development and implementation of this module and then its seamless integration into the Laserfiche. We're going to discuss a little bit about the streamlining of the vehicle fleet record-keeping requirements, and then our integration with the SunGuard banner and the institutional cloud portal. And we're going to talk a little bit about the SDK integration, the workflow, web link, the different reports that we have to do through the Office of Vehicle Fleet Management, and those other systems, the cloud and the SunGuard banner. Then on the second half of the discussion, we're going to talk a little bit about our faculty records, our graduate medical records, and some of the student records that we've developed a fairly complex management system that we have to do with the security because those have got some unique features to them. As I said, when we first started doing these different records from all the outlying areas, they were just dropping them in the mail, sending them to our department. We'd scan them in. They didn't even have scanners out in their areas at this point. So we'd start scanning them in. We'd index them. We'd have a good database going from those. Over the years, they got copiers that would scan, scanners on their desk, all sorts of different ways, so it made sense for them to go ahead and scan it in directly, but then they didn't have the license to do it. So we started using Laserfiche Snapshot. Very effective. We could go ahead and get it. But then the same person would be taking in 4 or 5 different kinds of documents, and they'd have to choose which snapshot profile they were working with. Led to some confusion with that. So then our programmers just created a little DLL module that matched the various profiles that we had already created in Snapshot, and then we embedded those in authenticated websites. Going back over here, we've got a little bit showing the different types of profiles that we had for the different documents that are going in. Once you get over 3 or 4, you can start confusing people. They really, I mean, it makes sense that they should be able to know exactly which one they're going with, but it doesn't always work that way. We use this portal environment with the university, so everyone is used to going to a very specific website that has just hundreds of links on it, and they know exactly which one to pull because they're well labeled. And embedded inside of that, they can do this one-stop shop so that they can go ahead and enter their records, they can go ahead and view records, they can run reports. They're just used to using this. And it gives us an opportunity to make it real easy for them to add their records. And they never even realize they're entering Laserfiche. They think it's still part of just this portal environment because the way that it captures the documents and matches it up, it's just part of the regular website as far as they're concerned. So one of several tasks that we started off doing when we started adding this module, and yeah, I intentionally chose one that was one of the shared vehicles so that we'd have all the different logos on it. But with over 1,000 total vehicles between the different systems, we had to have a way that we managed all the documentation that goes with them. If anyone has worked with the state government at all, they require, what kind of mileage you're getting, how many gallons of fuel you used, how many miles were driven, how many people were in the vehicle at any given time. In case you ever have an accident, they have to be able to go back, okay, on the 14th, This person submitted a claim 3 months later, who was in the vehicle, who was driving, who was the passenger. Lots of documentation that we have to keep up with. Every vehicle's assigned its own little credit card, a Voyager card, that all the charges that are charged to that card, and then we have to match all those expenses up to valid receipts at the end of each month, upload them to a state system. So everything's based on a calendar month. We have a limited number of vehicles that work with it. You know, it's a lot easier to work with the vehicles than it was with the total number of people that were involved. So each vehicle custodian no longer needs to update their Laserfiche snapshot preferences every time they go ahead and update or import a document, and they're not using up a license. And that, like I said, they don't even realize that they're accessing the Laserfiche website. And they just click on that link from that previous page. They get to this one that says Fleet Expense Certification System. This makes it real easy for users because it's a familiar interface. It requires minimal or absolutely no training, and the items are much more accurately indexed and properly placed within the repository. And it's like using the tokens in the Laserfiche forms. It's automatically capturing that information, putting it in the right place, using the correct naming conventions, everything. And I'm going to show at the very end, if anyone has a question, how you could do something very similar with the forms if you're interested in doing that. So just as an overview of what we're doing, the steps that are involved. The credit card sends a monthly CSV. We download that. The vehicle coordinator uploads this to a server. The module sorts all of this stuff out. The individual vehicle custodians scan in their receipts and logs. It matches them together. Basically, it's pulling the data from the individual user. When they log on, they already know which vehicle they're logging onto because they're going to click on a link for that specific vehicle. It's going to capture, well, like fuel invoices are very universal on how they're done. Using this Voyager card, they automatically show what the odometer reading is, and that'll be printed on the receipt. Everyone's seen these kind of receipts. It shows how many gallons, the price, the total sale. So you have the data very easily to configure. So using either a zone OCR or a quick fills, you could go ahead and just capture exactly what it is you need to have. And even with receipts like this one, I chose it on purpose because the fuel cell, it's kind of modeled on it. We're still getting over a 70% accuracy on getting every number and getting it right. Every now and then you still have to do some modifications with it. Now the repair invoices are different. Whether it's a flat repair or new battery, something like that, every one of those is different. So they're still having to do some manual keying in for those type of receipts. But it's automated the fuel part completely. So each vehicle coordinator sees a list of all the vehicles. They hit the select for the vehicle that they're trying to upload. They only see their vehicles. This was a list from the main view that would show multiple custodians, but each custodian would only see a list that has their vehicles. They click on that link. They go ahead and upload their images. It's already pre-populated with all the charges that were made to that credit card for the month. So it will come up with a list. They scan in their invoices. It'll match it up so that the gross amount matches. It'll automatically upload their odometer reading. Anything like the repairs, like that oil change there, they'll have to do an extra click to say what type of repair it was because it didn't automatically capture that. And they could say that it was the fuel or oil change. And then the workflow automatically searches the location where the link uploads it to. It uploads it just to a images and process type folder, pulls everything from that, runs the capture on it, puts them in the right spot so that each one's matched up with the information from that CSV. Most of our work's done at that point. The custodian authenticates it, logs in and realizes, every receipt's there, or if they have to find one more, they can go ahead and get it entered in. Then they can do it either searching from web link to go back and look for their individual receipts. And in this view, then they'd know that they were in Laserfiche if they're going back to search for the records. But like I said, since everything's going to be full text indexed. It makes it real easy for them to find the last time there was a vehicle inspection, last time there was a battery change, last time tire changed, anything like that makes it very easy for them to look for. And we've made it so that there's the saved search link on the web link page so that they automatically just hit on the button to say, I want to search the vehicles, so they don't even have to know anything about getting into it. They just can go directly that way. Maintenance search, if they're going from the actual client, this is the view that they'd get. We have 2 or 3 of the custodians that handle more than 10 vehicles that we still have them using the client version because it just makes life a little easier for them. One of the big things is it gives us a standardization of information. If you'll look up there on the top, you'll see some are done with fiscal year, some were done without the fiscal year on it. By using this system, there's never any variation on how the data is going in. They're all identically standardized on how the document's being imaged. We don't have any trouble. That was from prior to when the system was implemented, the 2 or 3 year old invoice under the state inspections. So at this point, we're about to shift gears and go to the next section of our conversation, which is on the staff and student records that we've got. So any questions up to this point? Okay, and we'll go ahead and change gears on here. The big thing about that DLL is the value you get. It saves a lot of time, saves a lot of training, and it ultimately saves money, especially when we're not having to use near as many licenses to allow the same users to go ahead and input data along with their documents and have it in a very usable format. So everything's in a constant state of refining. Our GME records, that's graduate medical education, is a good example. So it started like all the others. We were just scanning images to keep them archived so that we met any sort of mandates that we had on that. And then it's evolved through the security that we have on it to become a very complex system that we've got now. The graduate medical records are the ones that the credit card thieves want. These are the up-and-coming doctors, the ones that are doing all this sort of training. They're going to have a good income here in the future. And the records that we have everything from their birth certificate to their high school diploma, their college transcripts, everything about their marriage certificates, everything. It is a very complete package of information that we have on them. In today's litigious society, we have to document every single class that they attend, every single procedure that they have attempted, and how they did at it, and what kind of critique they had on it. It just creates a very large base of information that has to be maintained. And it has to be maintained nearly forever, as long as the person is practicing medicine or could be practicing medicine plus 5 years. So that's a long retention span for these. These medical residents do rotation in different fields. They'll do obstetrics, they'll do pharmacy, they'll do pediatrics, they'll go all around. They'll do it at different campuses. And each time they're working on a different campus, their instructors on those campuses need to be able to see their records, the pertinent records, but they don't need to see everything that's in there. And since they're shifting around, it's a lockstep program so that this pod of students will be at this campus this semester, and then this campus this semester, and this campus the next semester. All of their records just move with them. And then we have a few that rotate independently from the pod, and so their records also have to be managed. Everyone, say in the Odessa campus, can see very basic records for the students that are there. The actual specialty that the student is involved with can see specific records and add records for them. The people in Lubbock can see all of the records with some limitations. So it just creates a complicated set of security that needs to be put in. So the records are constantly being added. The current campus is changing on a regular basis. And like I said, the GME staff on each campus can access some records, and the GME administration can view virtually all of the records. Okay, new records are added to the scanning folder. The person that's doing the scanning, whether they're on the individual campus or in a centralized location, can see them as they're going into that scanning folder. Once they've been accepted into that scanning folder, they can't even go back and look at them to see if they've got a bad scan or if it's missing a page or anything like that. So then the scanner updates the template information that's associated with it. Then our workflow files that record according to the batch information as to what campus it's on, what specialty, what type of training, what type of document, what subcategory of document, and then the access rights are granted at that point. The GME administration gets at the beginning of each semester, they get a daily list. Throughout most of the rest of the semester, they just get a weekly list of all the documents that are going in. They can just look right down the columns and say, oh, no, this one really should be over here. This one should be done a little bit differently. So 3 people in one group can modify the items. No one in the other groups can. We've got about 40 groups that can only view. They can't actually modify the documents that are in them. As we do that list, I'll have a picture of the list here in a second, that each folder is viewable only by the specific people, and they have to have the person administering it especially has to have a very good understanding of user rights, access rights, effective rights, inherited rights, conflicting rights. All of those can overlap. If you do it wrong, all of a sudden things can be viewed by everybody, or no one can see them at all. So you have to have a good understanding, and I know they're doing multiple classes on that so that you can learn much more about the rights. Over here on this side shows some of the inherited rights that they're getting. You can look at the effective rights. On the far left, you'll see that this one would be someone that would be visible from Lubbock under the psychiatry area. So you would see that's a non-inherited right that goes into that folder. Keeps it a little bit confusing on that. This new list of documents is what gets submitted. And like in this case, we have someone in the Permian Basin obstetrics that's actually being filed under the internal medicine. Well, sometimes that's good and sometimes it's not. So in this case, they sent us a list and said that one needs to be in the internal medicine rather than in the obstetrics folder, so that one was approved. Our people that move the documents around don't necessarily understand. Sometimes it's just you're told this record goes there, even though the title on it said that it was an internal medicine or obstetrics. Whatever was being taught that day was something that covered over a broader range, and so they'll move it in. But a vast majority of ours get automated by the template information when the document is scanned. Every entity has some rules on secure access. Higher education has more than its fair share, and medical education has even more than that. We have to adhere to very strict standards on that. We've got HIPAA laws, FERPA laws, everything like that we have to go along with. We have to determine what categories or groups need access and what types of records are being archived. Lots of rules, like I said. We have special ed, we've got speech, language, and hearing, we've got those insurance documents. Every single one of them has a little bit different set of rules, but the procedures are all the same. You develop a set of parameters, you keep evaluating according to that, you have someone that's looking back on it, checking it, reviewing it. We did a webinar back about 2 years ago that developed some of the steps of setting up the database and all the reviews and criteria that you'd go along with it. And it helped determine when it's best to replicate the paper trail or when it's better to invent something totally different, to be creative with it. And frequently we found that the way that they were doing their paper trail when we started working with the different clients wasn't the most effective. It was far from being the most effective. So we'd help them redefine their process. We do it as a shared service like some of the other institutions. We still have to recoup all of our money that's spent on it. So we charge the individual departments for the time, for the work that we do for them. Everything's cost recovery. So we're constantly asking why as they're working with the document. they've been capturing all these blueprints and things like that. And we go, why? If you've got one set, why are we doing 6 and 7 versions of the same print in? And they'll explain, well, this one's got an as-built thing on it. This one goes variations from the original. This one has builder's notes, and this one has architect's notes. And we try and incorporate all of those into a single set rather than having 7 different sets that people have to cross between each one. The student records are the exact same thing. You'll sometimes see the same document put in time and time again with some variations on it. The insurance documents are the worst on it. They would take an electronic receipt of payments that were being made, draw a circle around one number on a 140-page report, and rescan the whole thing in. That's not efficient. So we're trying to work with them on what the most efficient way is to do all of these documents. We're constantly reviewing it with them, trying to watch it, seeing the variations with them, and reevaluate everything because everything changes over time. So as we start working with the customers, the semantics matter. When they say, okay, you can get rid of that record. Well, what do you mean by that? Are we just detaching the volume and archiving it, or are we totally deleting it? Those are two completely separate things. One of the other recommendations we make for best practices, and I've mentioned it to several of the people that I've talked to here, is test your backups. Make sure every month we submit one document to our IT department, which is a completely separate department, and say, I need to have this one page restored. Well, we do an incremental backup every night, and they do a full backup every week, but sometimes that full backup doesn't finish before the Monday morning business gets started and things get out of sync between the SQL base and the image base. It's much better to figure out things like that on a test basis than it is when, I've lost 2 million documents out of sync now, I need to get it all restored. What kind of problems am I going to have? So we encourage everyone as far as best practices to test your backups all the time. We have certain words that we'll search for in our index base. I'll go in and I'll look for a word like Tascosa. And I know in this volume or this repository, it's been appearing about 2,200 times. Well, if all of a sudden it's only appearing about 18 times, I know I've got a huge problem. I better figure out if I need to just rebuild my index base or if I need to do something completely different. We need to watch access rights all the time. Sometimes you'll have someone that has deleted a folder or it's been renamed and the user doesn't realize that we've got all these automated processes in there, that it's been looking for the specific folder name and it's going to do some sort of action on it. Well, they changed it, from a last name to first name to being first name to last name or something like that because they thought that was better. Well, no, we've got to keep things somewhat standardized on it. And the unexpected's not always a bad thing. Here about 3 years ago, we had our HR department decide they were going to pull all of their records off of the Laserfiche and put it into the SunGuard extender. So we ran our little thing. 2 weeks later, they uploaded all of their documents to extender. The other half of our institution, not the Health Sciences Center side, but the main Texas Tech, had fewer records, but it took them almost 2 years to get it in a format that could be uploaded into extender. So everyone in IT loved us. They thought, hey, Laserfiche is the way to go as far as compatibility with other systems. They got to see some of those things. We thought it was a terrible thing that we lost those records, but it's actually worked very much to our benefit when we got to show how versatile the system was and how it moved along. So any other questions on our either best practices, our setting up of the student records, or the vehicle module? Yes, sir.
A question on your DLL. Who wrote that? Did Laserfiche write that?
No. The question was about our DLL, where it came from. We have the Integrator's Toolkit, and so actually it was written by one of our graduate students. It was just a student project, but I can give you the name of our IT person that's still there that's very familiar with it. He would definitely be willing to give you assistance with it. Most of your VARs can also help with something like that. Half the vendors up there also offer some sort of service that they'll sell you that does a similar thing. Connect will do a lot of the same type things, but for us it was the keeping the expense at the absolute minimum that we went with that DLL. But see me right afterwards. I'll give you a name of the guy that could help you in developing your own if you have the integrator's toolkit. Any other questions? Or my VAR's right over here. He's very helpful with things like that too. So, yes, sir.
Did you say something about scanning construction files?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you do manage those?
We've done that. We built a big basketball arena, the United Spirit Arena, and they had pretty much a module of records on that. It took us almost a year and a half to scan in just for that. We even did like the tile samples, everything like that, where we took photos of those and inserted them into the documents with it. The reason we had to go so complete on that is they had litigation. You know, we had cases like that, so it went on forever. We had a freeway project that went right through the middle of campus that we had well over 1 million documents associated with that got scanned in. We had in a wide format scanner. We've got the individual page scanners pulling all of that in. We took photos. We had the CAD drawings imported in. Laserfiche holds those in their native format just perfectly. Just takes up a lot of room. But yeah, you can index them and have it all together. One of the many, many projects we've done. We've done the blueprints. We've done the as-built drawings. We've done the spec books. You know,
Documents, obviously, every time you do a
very definitely.
remodel or whatever, they got to access it.
Yes, and we've got a steam plant there on campus that goes back 60 years, 70 years. That it's the only way you could find information on that is pulling it in from what's in Laserfiche, because all the original drawings for some of those pipe tunnels and all that are long gone. So, any other questions? Yes, sir.
How many licenses do you have, or how many licensed users?
Under my part, we've got 75 regular users, 50 participant users, and the web link. And I don't know how many or electronic medical records are using now, but it's not that many. 25? Yeah, so 25 additional. And then speech, language, and hearing, I think, has 5. So between...
Do you know about the volume of all your records?
I know at September 1st of this last year, when we archived the physical records, the current plus 3 years, we took off almost 8 million records, just archiving. Our total volume, last time I checked it, was running about 18 million current live records. So not as big as some, but it's still a lot. It's when we do that backup that I was talking about, they cannot just run one backup on the server starting Friday evening and having it finished by the Monday morning. It has to be done in sections. Otherwise, it'll never sync properly to that SQL database. I believe we have 7 repositories that are currently very active, plus 2 or 3 test ones and things like that we run things in. And now as we're really rolling out forms, we're wondering if we should put the forms in a separate repository instead of in the current one that it's in, because it's definitely putting a load on that server as you start doing the workflow and the forms with it. So it started growing. We just purchased it last year, and it's already taking up a pretty good chunk of processing time. So
How long have you had the place?
we purchased it in 1999, so 16 and a half, 17 years. So not their oldest cluster. I saw they were giving recognition to those that have had it 20 or more years, but long enough.
I worked for Tarrant County College in Fort Worth.
Yes, sir.
We got 5 major campuses.
Mm-hmm.
We just bought it 4 years ago.
4 years ago for Tarrant County.
And our vice chancellor was smart enough to get us the Cadillac, so we got the form, we got it all.
Mhm.
And we got a small crew trying to implement it one department at a time. We've got admissions up, we've got HR up. So, but we need to do something with our CAD file and construction files.
be happy to answer any questions you've got on that, or we've got several experts.
Programming sounded interesting too, to save licenses.
Yeah, well, the saving the licenses is essential at some point.
Yeah.
So, any other questions? All right, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.